Recording myself here. And I'm an industry education coordinator working with the Regina District Industry Education Council and SunWest School Division. Today it's my pleasure to introduce a former student and former player from my volleyball team, Kristin Pierce. She's a graduate of Rosetown Central High School. Kristin is a published author, a self-awareness educator, and holistic practitioner. She currently owns her own business called Inner Compass Books and Inner Compass Academy. Besides being a published author, she is also a Mindscape instructor, body talk practitioner instructor, a trained acupuncturist, and a registered massage therapist. Kristin was recently named a CBC's Future 40 winner, a Saskatchewan award that celebrates a new generation of leaders and builders under the age of 40. Though she is still very young, Kristin has a fascinating career story. Today she'll tell us more about what she does and the incredible journey she took to get to this point. Just a reminder before we begin, the session is being recorded and will appear on the RDIEC YouTube channel for you and others to view in the future. We'd also like to request any students that view this to go to the website at www.rdiec.ca and complete the student survey that can be found near the top of the homepage. And when you complete the survey, you get your name in a monthly draw for a $50 gift card. Again, the website is www.rdiec.ca. Kristin, I'll turn it over to you now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me today and for the invitation. I am excited to be here and share a little bit about what I do and my journey that has kind of led me to this place. Because yeah, as you mentioned, Mr. G, it's been an interesting one, and it's not something I would have ever suspected when I was back in high school. So as I mentioned, or as Mr. Galetz mentioned, my name is Kristin Pierce, and I will tell you a bit about my two businesses called Inner Compass Books and Inner Compass Academy. All right, so we already kind of did the intro, but I am a self-awareness educator, an award-winning children's author, a holistic practitioner, a mom of two, and a soulful entrepreneur with over a decade of experience. My businesses are both located in Warman, Saskatchewan, and I figured I would just also share my websites if you want to look into things further on your end. So I'll begin by telling you about my business called Inner Compass Books. So I have 5 children's books. So this business is fairly new. It began in 2018 when I released my first book. So as the author behind Inner Compass Books, I write mindfully crafted children's books with empowering learning messages to help our youngest generation establish empowered mindsets from an early age. So my books include topics such as growth mindset, the inner self, and the power of the mind, creativity, and imagination. So as I mentioned, I have 5 books, which I will show you on the next slide. All of them have actually become #1 bestsellers on Amazon in their categories, which is pretty exciting. And that was a learning curve as well from the marketing end to get them to those places. I also won an International Book Award with my second book in 2018. And I'm also a Sask Future 40 Award winner for 2020, which was pretty crazy considering the year that it was. And I've spoken to over 3,000 students in over 50 schools around Saskatchewan since I first started. So that has been quite a fun adventure. And I did a reading this morning to about 200 kindergarten students. So that was an adventure in itself. And it's always really funny to hear the questions that the students have to ask, especially when you're working with elementary students, because they can really come out of left field, but it's a really fun time, and I'm excited that I get to do that. So here are my books. My first book is called Your Inner Compass That Could, and then Mava Omir Creationeer is the one that won the International Book Award. Magnus Omir Mind Pioneer was my next one, and I really love that one. That one's one of my favorites. And then Hazel Mist Hypnotist and The Sweet Dreams Express are books that both came out in 2020. And The Sweet Dreams Express is actually one of my best sellers, and then Magnus Omir Mind Pioneer as well. And I think probably third runner-up would be Your Inner Compass That Could. That one still seems to be a hit, even though I am a little bit judgmental of it now that I've gotten better at my writing. So the duties are quite extensive for being an entrepreneur, but specifically for Inner Compass books, I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna tell you everything that I do. So in terms of the book creation process, the duties that I do, I write, I self-edit, and I rewrite. There's a lot of rewriting even in writing children's books. I work with editors, I research and plan the book illustrations. So I should also mention that I self-publish my books. So sometimes I'm assuming that would probably be a lot more work because I'm doing a lot of the tasks myself. But it is a fun process because I get to have a lot of creative control, which is not necessarily given to the author when they work with a traditional publisher. I set up contracts with my illustrators, I perform the art direction, so I get to be part of the creative process when it comes to the actual art that shows up on the pages in the books by collaborating and giving feedback to the illustrators. Obviously, I communicate with the illustrators. Sometimes I do actually do the interior design, so the layout of the book, putting the words on the pages and making sure everything lines up so that it prints properly. Sometimes I have done my own book cover design, sometimes I'm working with a designer, and sometimes the illustrator also does that. I set up book files for printing and distribution. I take care of ordering book stock, communicating with and distributing books to my retail partners. I manage timelines and project coordination, track book sales, revenue, and expenses. I perform school visits and book signing events. I create presentations and keynotes, which I then use in my school visits or in other events. I do outreach to retail partners and also website management. And then there's also marketing. And this goes for both of my businesses. So sometimes there's some overlap in these duties. I do media interviews. So sometimes that requires reaching out to get those things booked, creating press releases, pitch emails, that kind of thing. I create marketing materials and graphics, social media, email marketing, book launch prep, and I manage my launch team and my review team as well. I do have help for a lot of these tasks, and then also event planning and marketing. So I do have an editor that I work with on a regular basis. I have a marketing manager as well that helps me, draw up my marketing plans and helps me, understand my timelines of when I need to implement everything. And I have a designer that helps me as well. So some of these things I do farm out to other people, which is always helpful. All right, and now I'm going to talk about Inner Compass Academy. So my mission with Inner Compass Academy is to empower others to deconstruct their limiting beliefs, shift their perspectives, open their minds, and expand their awareness of mind, body, and self. How I do that is through my offerings of body talk sessions, massage therapy, Mindscape seminars, online programs and courses, and then I also do mentoring. So sometimes that is business mentoring, sometimes that is author mentoring, sometimes that is mindset mentoring. And just a little overview for anyone who hasn't heard of Body Talk. Body Talk is a holistic health modality that addresses the connection between the body and the mind. It is a really interesting modality, and I will share a little bit about that as I get into things here, specifically about my entrepreneurial journey. All right, so my duties for Inner Compass Academy, I teach courses, which is probably one of my favorite things is teaching Mindscape. And so Mindscape is a course where basically we learn to harness the power of the mind and we bring limiting belief systems up to the surface so that we can become aware of them. And that enables us, that awareness enables us to be able to make some different choices instead of just, choosing things on autopilot. So I really love teaching courses. I work with clients, I manage client files. I create new programs. I'm actually just finishing a program online course creation, which is called the Soulful Startup. And it's really about helping new entrepreneurs who are in kind of this realm, not specifically just for holistic practitioners, but anyone who's trying to start their own soulful business. I'm creating this program to help them learn how to get started and manage all of these areas. So that's been kind of fun. I do author and business mentoring sessions, keynote speaking events, manage online programs, communicate with course coordinators, all the marketing efforts, website management, financial management, event planning, coordination, social media, email marketing, blog posts, networking, continuing education, which I don't have to do for Inner Compass books, but because I'm a body talk practitioner and a registered massage therapist, I do have regular continuing education credits that I need to get to make sure I'm staying up to date with my knowledge, and CPR certification and all that kind of stuff as a healthcare professional. And then I also create marketing materials for everything as well. So I also wanted to mention here, I do hire out things. So I'm not doing everything all the time. I hire out my house cleaning, my bookkeeping, my editing, my marketing plans, and some design work. And I've also had various assistants throughout the years, but I'm actually going to be focusing on hiring someone that can grow with me and is going to stick around for quite a while this spring. So as soon as I get this next course out, then I'm ready to do that. So delegating is a very important part of entrepreneurship and running a successful business. So my education background, I have a Bachelor of Science in Sports Medicine from Mercyhurst College in Erie, Pennsylvania, where I was on an athletic and academic scholarship. From there, I'll talk a little bit about the journey on the next slide, but this is just my education. I got my certified body talk practitioner status in 2009, and then I decided to go back to school for massage therapy. Got my diploma from the Royal Canadian School of Massage Therapy in Toronto, where I also did my acupuncture diploma. And I don't know if this is a normal course, normal journey, where I did my degree first and then massage therapy after. But one of the benefits, because it was in the same realm, is that I actually got to fast track my massage program because I had already done in a lot more detail some of like, the anatomy and the physiology and the special tests and so many injuries, and knowing all of that knowledge ahead of time helped so that I didn't have to do it in massage school. I actually got to challenge some of those things and fast track the program. So that was wonderful. In 2012, I got my advanced certification as a body talk practitioner. And then I became a body talk access trainer, which is a one-day course that I can teach. And it's basic, 5 basic techniques that you can use on yourself to help just balance your brain and your body and get better communication happening internally. And then in 2015, I completed my instructor training to become a Mindscape instructor. And that is really my sweet spot. I love everything psychology and belief systems and really helping people unleash their potential. So that's my education. And now I'll go into my actual journey. So as Mr. Galetz mentioned, I went to Rosetown Central High School, and that is where I grew up, and I was very active in sports. So when I was actually working with him as my career counselor at the time, sports was kind of all I knew, and I loved the body. I was very interested in anatomy. And so I decided that I wanted to go into something that was going to lead to physiotherapy. So kinesiology is sports medicine equivalent because I went to school in the States. And so that's kind of what I decided to go with because I wanted to continue being involved in sports and athletics, and that was what I knew. So I was very active in athletics. So I was on Team Saskatchewan for volleyball and track and field. And that was a lot of work, but got me a scholarship where I studied sports medicine. And then in between my 3rd and 4th years of university, I actually had an experience with ovarian cancer when I was 21. And so I was introduced to body talk by a nurse in my hometown hospital the first day I was admitted into the hospital. And so obviously this was a pretty life-altering experience. And I actually just wrote my memoir about it, which came out this past September. And honestly, I really do think it was a gift, but it challenged so many of my thoughts and beliefs. And, you know, I had 3 years of experience in university learning about health and the body and how it all worked, and nutrition and the rules of health and all of those things. And then I got cancer as an elite athlete. And so obviously it challenged me in many ways. It challenged my thoughts and my beliefs, and opened me up to trying a holistic modality that otherwise I wouldn't have tried had I not been faced with such severe circumstances. And the interesting thing is it resonated with me so much. Basically, Body Talk, my first experience with it, my practitioner was telling me that everything, you know, mentally and emotionally shows up physically in our body. So especially if we've got, you know, thoughts and emotions happening, but we're holding everything in, or we're not expressing those things, then that emotional energy needs to be stored somewhere inside the body, and it can actually show up as physical symptoms. And that really resonated with me because I was not someone who really allowed myself to express any emotion. I was all about, you know, being strong and tough and all of those kinds of things when I was in high school. Probably as a method of survival or coping mechanism, but obviously it created cancer within me, and it allowed me to just reassess what I was doing and where I wanted to go. So once that was all over, I went back to finish my last year of university. And then when I graduated from Erie, I moved back to Saskatoon and worked as a physio assistant for a year while I was also taking Body Talk classes on the weekends. And I also started my kind of side business of actually doing sessions for friends and family and learning some things about running my own business. And as I was doing that, I began to realize that maybe physio wasn't my path anymore. Because my mind had been open to something else that really resonated with me a lot more. And I got to witness, you know, people healing and shifting and, you know, changing their beliefs and their thoughts, and then actually allowing that to create change in their bodies. And it just fascinated me. So I decided that, you know what, physio this isn't for me anymore. It's not aligned with who I'm becoming. And so I decided to move to Toronto for massage school. And as I mentioned, I fast-tracked that program. So I did it in about a year. And then from there, I moved to Ottawa, and I worked in multiple clinics as a registered massage therapist and a Body Talk practitioner. And as soon as I was in massage school, I knew that I wanted to run my own practice. And so as I was working in these other practices, I was paying attention to, you know, what they were doing from a marketing perspective, the way they were getting clients in the door, how they were keeping clients coming back, you know, how they were connecting with people and building rapport, and which other practitioners were fully booked and why. And so I have a very analytical mind, and I made sure I was paying attention to those things and analyzing them and gathering information. And it really helped me become ready to start my own business in 2012 when we moved back to Saskatoon. So that's when I started Inner Compass Academy, and I based my business out of my home. And I had my daughter in 2013, and I just continued to grow my business around being a mom. And then I completed my instructor training for teaching Mindscape in 2015. I knew from the first time I took that class that I wanted to teach it. And I think that's something that's really important, is when you do have like a knowing or a desire that is that strong, it's important to honor those things, because that means it's really aligned with who you are. And then I started Inner Compass Books in 2018, and that was really born out of a desire for books that would empower my kids when I wasn't finding books with the type of content that I wanted to read to my kids. And so, yeah, that was really born out of becoming a mother. I never thought about being an author before that. I never thought about writing books. I never even considered myself creative. But because of teaching Mindscape, it allowed me to reassess some of my beliefs about creativity and about myself. and even about the value of creativity. And I really just started trying writing. And when that happened, it's like, all right, you know, I have a couple manuscripts. And then I really just had to get out of my own way and figure out how I could make those into books. And so I used a company to help me learn the self-publishing process. And then I took off on my own and have done 4 more books on my own. So I used a company to help me learn the process for my first 2 books, and then realized that that was actually slowing me down a bit, so I could do it a little bit better on my own. All right, and I just wanted to share a quote here for entrepreneurialism. It's a quote by Jonas Salk, and it says, "Hope lies in dreams, in imagination, and in the courage of those who dare to make dreams into reality." So I think that's a really important aspect of entrepreneurialism. There's so much courage required, and imagination in terms of thinking outside the box and reimagining things, and not necessarily letting any of your dreams be squished by thoughts or beliefs or, you know, rules of how things should work. And so, yeah, anything that you dream, you can absolutely make that a reality. So here are some skills and abilities I was trying to think about or reflect upon for my line of work. And I know I run 2 businesses that are quite different in terms of what they offer, but the mentality and kind of the theme of my businesses is very much aligned. One is just, you know, directed to adults in terms of healing their belief systems, and the other one's really about empowering kids in their belief systems. All right, so some of the skills and abilities, the ability to connect and meet people where they're at. So one example of that was this morning, I was speaking to kindergarten kids. That's very different than connecting with kids who are in grade 4, 5, and 6, like I will be doing next week. And that is also very different from tomorrow. I've got a full day of clients, and each of those clients is unique, and they are at a different place with different beliefs and even a different age range, right? So being able to meet people where they're at and kind of, you know, read them in that way is important in what I do. Great communication skills are really helpful. Public speaking skills, project management, and time management skills as well, especially when you don't have someone telling you what to do. You need to be able to organize your projects or organize your tasks in order of priority and manage time on your own. Creative thinking, oh, and I was going to add more to that, and apparently I didn't, so should have removed that comma. Research skills are a must. So I do a lot of research with my children's books, but even in terms of course creation, I need to make sure that whatever my idea is, there's a viable target market that's wanting that. And so research can be, yeah, something that I actually think is really fun now, and I probably wouldn't have said that when I was younger, but it's a very important part of business. Having an understanding of writing, punctuation, and grammar is important for all things, whether that's social media or writing blog posts or creating presentations. I think that's a really important part. And then also, of course, for writing books as well. And I didn't necessarily know everything about this, but I've done a lot of learning and a lot of reading since I started getting into Intercompass books. Marketing skills are important, professionalism as well. And then a willingness to learn new skills, find mentors, take courses, read books. There's a lot of learning that comes with running your own business, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? You don't know everything, and a lot of times we just have to be willing to, you know, look it up or ask somebody for help or find someone who can teach that to us. And then also a willingness to delegate can be something that's really helpful as well. So best suited for this line of work, this was a kind of a hard slide for me to create because honestly, I think anyone can learn to be good at business and good at running a business. But again, you have to be open and willing to try new things and learn new skills. But being self-motivated or intrinsically inspired and passionate about what you do, that's something that I think is really important. Again, great communication. Sometimes that just comes with practice and with, you know, putting yourself out into situations where you need to be able to figure out how you're going to present something, or just practice speaking about things until you feel more comfortable about it. Organizational skills are huge, and again, excellent time management skills. Again, those are things that you can learn, and a lot of that is about creating healthy habits, habit stacking, reassessing your own habits, and replacing the ones that aren't as constructive with ones that are. Being empathetic and connecting with people is really important if you're in the holistic realm. But even when I connect with people at a book signing, being empathetic really helps to allow some of those connections to grow with people and helps them feel connected to you. Being courageous and willing to stretch your comfort zone is an absolute must. And one of the things I'm just going to share later on is how there's been so many opportunities that have come to me just by, okay, I'm going to figure out how to publish this book. Like, I didn't know how to do any of this before I started, 3 years ago, but that's where being courageous and willing to stretch your comfort zone is a really important thing. Employing a growth mindset. Oh my gosh, there are so many, mistakes and hard learning experiences and those sorts of things that I've made in business. But when you have a growth mindset, it's really about, okay, what can I learn from this? Or, okay, how can I do it better next time? And you're constantly learning from things and growing and developing. You don't have to know everything, but that's where the, growth mindset's important, because then you have a willingness to try, to learn new skills, tackle new tasks. And that's really important in business. Being creative and imaginative is obviously really important as a children's author. I also think that's important in business in general, but I will also go on to say that, again, I never thought I was creative throughout high school at all. I did art class, but I really had to force it. I had some perfectionist tendencies going on there, which were definitely blocking me. But honestly, the more that I've opened up my mind to creativity, the more I've allowed myself to have fun with it and think outside the box, the more all of that's opened up. So as I mentioned, I believe all of these things on this slide and the one previous are things that people can learn and develop, right? It doesn't mean that, you can only do something like this if you have great communication skills. All of these things can be developed, and I think that's really important to remember. All right, in terms of my facility, I am a home-based business, and I do a lot of event things, which have turned into more online and virtual events now because of COVID in 2020. But I was traveling across Canada to teach Mindscape, and so now I'm teaching that mostly online, but I'm going to start to do some in-person classes again here shortly, obviously following guidelines, but I'm really excited to be able to connect with people in person again. I speak to schools around Saskatchewan. Again, most of that has gone virtual now because no one's allowed in the schools quite yet. I do author readings and signing events in stores, which has been a lot of fun. And then I do also, to change things up and get a different environment, I do hit up coffee shops for a change of scenery so that I'm not always in my office all the time. Sometimes that can definitely be a damper for creative endeavors when your scenery never changes. And as I mentioned, there's a lot more online events and virtual author school visits happening right now than ever before. But it also, 2020 allowed a lot of people to reimagine what they're doing, find different ways to do business and succeed at it as well. So here are some pictures of my treatment room. And I just like to have a really calm and soothing space for people when they're coming for Inner Compass Academy. And then this is kind of the extension of my office, is all of these events that I do. So I actually did an event at the Nutrient Wonder Hub a few weeks ago, which was really fun. Book signing events are fairly regular, although COVID has changed that a bit lately. And then I was even invited to do doing a reading with my alma mater at Mercyhurst online with all the alumni coming up in a couple weeks, which will be fun. And then I've done events, you know, at McNally and Indigo and all of that. So those things have been really fun opportunities. So I'm not always in my office, which is helpful. From an equipment perspective, I think this is a fairly basic list, but you know, I use a computer, I use a laptop, depending on where I'm working. Printer is obviously important, and those are fairly basic, but I also have an iPad Pro, Apple Pencil, I use Adobe Procreate and InDesign. So a lot of that is required when I'm designing illustrations or I'm working with an illustrator and we're kind of, I know, need to describe something of like where I want it moved on a page, or I want this to be over here, or I want it to look differently. I found that one of the easiest ways to work with an illustrator is to actually draw what I mean in some of those illustrations. So the iPad Pro has been really helpful for that. We also create documents that teachers and parents can use that go with all of our children's books. So we use the iPad for a lot of things, illustration and creation that way. I have a ring light, which is helpful for presentations, just a lighting thing. You can see that in the slide here, just above the computer. I also use a pretty fancy microphone for the most part. I have a really solid desk chair. I find that is really important, especially when you're sitting a lot. I also have a massage table and some things that I use specifically when I'm working with people in my treatment room. And then some of the programs that I use are Zoom, like we're on right now, but then basics like PowerPoint and Word and Excel. I use QuickBooks for bookkeeping, and then just lots of different apps for marketing and social media, research, design, online courses, you know, video recording, all kinds of things. It's honestly, business has gotten a lot easier because of all of these apps that can help you create things that you might have needed, you know, to hire a professional for previously. So that makes life easier in the business realm. Oh, this was a hard thing for me to actually narrow down the best parts of my career, because honestly, there are so many. So I'm not really sure if I was able to narrow these things down. I pretty much listed everything. So I'm going to go through a few slides here, and then I'll also talk about what some of the challenges are. The best parts of my career are really about having the freedom and the flexibility to pursue projects and create content that matters to me. So things that I feel are important to share, or, you know, creating books around topics that I wish I would have learned this when I was a kid. I get to do that, which is pretty cool. I get to follow my inspiration and, you know, really create empowerment in whichever way I want to share with my kids and the younger generation. So there are a couple pictures here that you can see. The one with the girl here is Hazel Mist Hypnotist. And here's just an example for you guys to see of, you know, what my writing's like. But this Hazel Mist Hypnotist, and then the other picture is Magnosomi or Mind Pioneer. These two books have concepts in them that I teach about in Mindscape, or that I work with clients with. And so it's fun to be able to share some of those things from a growth mindset perspective with kids and with parents and with teachers. And so here in that one picture with Hazel Mist, it says, if you think that you can't or believe that you can, your mind is determined to stick to your plan. But all of these blocks you believe to be true are not in your way. They don't have to stop you. So pull back the curtain and then shine a light on the limits and blocks that just don't feel right. Okay, and then she's actually pulling the curtain back in the illustration, and we've got a whole bunch of blocks there about things that typically hold us back in our minds, and they're not real. So on the next page of this book, it actually shows them quite easily breaking these blocks and seeing like, sometimes it's just about questioning what we think. And then those things that we think are stopping us, they're not really in our way. So it's pretty cool to get to share something like that in a kid's book and share it in a way that helps them understand how mindset works. So I'm really passionate about that. I get to use my imagination and get creative and dream up stories, and it's so fun. And then people actually like pay me for that. So that's pretty amazing. I really enjoy having creative control over what's, you know, how my books are created. And I really enjoy collaborating with illustrators. It's really neat to see people who are so talented, you know, in their realm, or their creative realm. And then I also get to incorporate meaningful things into my book illustrations and let my own kids help me come up with illustration ideas, which they really, really love. And honestly, I love learning and stretching my comfort zone. I think I've always kind of been that way, but my businesses really allow me to do that. So a couple other things that are really awesome. I love getting to connect with children in schools and at events. I get to teach kids how to write their own picture books, which is something I never imagined myself doing. Like, again, I didn't even think I was creative. So it's really cool to watch students get inspired to read and write and get creative and share their own ideas. And then I also get to witness kids getting excited about my books and getting to see the positive impact that my business is making with our youngest generation. So these two pictures here, one was actually presenting to my own elementary school in Rosetown, the top picture there. And then the bottom one, I got invited to do a full day writing presentation with a K-8 school, and where, you know, we took time for them to actually come up with ideas and then start the writing process and then go through editing and imagine what they want their pictures to look like and begin sketching their first, you know, rough outlines. And it was such a cool experience. And again, not something I would have ever expected, but there's been a lot of opportunities that come that I get to go, that sounds really cool. I never thought of that. Yeah, I'd really like to try that. And it's been neat to get to do that. And then when it comes to Inner Compass Academy, I really love connecting with clients, educating my clients about the connection between the body and the mind, how their thoughts and emotions affect their physical body, everything about body psychology and anatomy as well. I like offering new perspectives, new healing options, and new possibilities through mindset work with my clients. And I it's so amazing to get to witness people change their mindsets and their lives, and that, you know, I get to be a part of that. It's really, really special. Also, pre-COVID, I was traveling across Canada, which was really fun, you know, get to meet new people in different locations and connect with like-minded people as well. And then one of the best parts is I get to incorporate everything I love into my work, which is pretty awesome. Okay, sorry, a couple more things. I get to be my own boss, which is really fun. I get to create change in my business that directly has a direct ripple effect. So like there's no upper management that I need to go through. There's no red tape, you know, I get to make those choices and implement that change pretty quickly. I also really like being responsible for my own success. There's no one I can blame if something doesn't go my way. You know, I need to own that and I'm responsible for it and I get to do something about it. So I really enjoy that. And again, as I mentioned, I get to do things I never imagined I'd be doing. So again, like doing events at Wonder Hub, that was actually quite surreal to get invited. I didn't even reach out to them, they invited me, so that was cool. I've had all kinds of media interviews, which has been very scary, quite terrifying, but also really exciting. Again, full day writing workshops, lots of podcast interviews, keynote speaking invitations, author mentoring. Again, nothing that I would have ever imagined myself doing. But as with everything, there's always challenges, and that's okay. I try to see all of my challenges as something that I can grow from. And so some of the challenges are performing the tasks that I don't love while building my business. So luckily I've been able to delegate some of these things already, like my bookkeeping. But when you're starting out, you need to do all of those things and you need to wear all of the hats. Hours spent on book design. I do actually quite like doing book design. I just don't like the hours, the meticulous hours, and all of the attention to detail sometimes makes it feel like my eyes are going to fall out after hours upon hours of that. And then again, screen time overload some days, or not moving my body as often as I would like. So I really have to try to incorporate habits to support myself, especially when I've got some of that screen time overload happening. And that's actually what this picture in the top is about. I'm not sure if you can tell that my eyes look very exhausted, but that is how I was feeling after I spent a few days in a row staring at a screen editing my book. So that was quite exhausting, but also very rewarding after it was done, just trying to make it to the finish line. I also have a love-hate relationship with social media. It is something that is absolutely necessary as a business owner, but sometimes I'm just not, sometimes it's not my favorite. So sometimes I have to force myself to prep, posts and all of those kinds of things, but have to do it. So I'm also looking into starting to farm that out to someone else. Keeping projects on schedule can be a challenge, especially when you're working with other people. Illustrators, I've had one book that took 8 months just for illustrations. And that was super frustrating, but that's part of running your own business. Adjusting and kind of rolling with the punches there. Working alone all the time can sometimes be a challenge. I kind of border on the line of extrovert and introvert. So I actually do quite enjoy working alone, but when it's constant all the time and there isn't a whole lot of socializing happening like in 2020, then sometimes that gets to be a little bit much. And then lastly, just juggling all aspects of both businesses can sometimes be intense. So I need to make sure I'm taking care of myself mentally and emotionally, and even taking care of my body physically and scheduling in some of that self-care time. So this picture on the bottom, as you can see, was after a big long haul of design. I've got random snacks. It's like probably 11:30 at night. And that's just a real life picture of what happens sometimes behind the scenes. In terms of salary and benefits, my business revenue has been around the 80 to 100,000. I have surpassed that 100,000 a couple years in the last few. But one of the really amazing things about entrepreneurship is there aren't any limits. There's no ceiling on your earnings. You're responsible for that, of course. But the other really positive perk is that there's passive income that comes from my book sales. And I do have Amazon ads running all the time, which also helps to drive those sales and that passive revenue coming. But that's all something that I was wanting as an entrepreneur, is not having to work all the time in order to earn money. So I'm just trying to push some of those limits and not constantly have to be trading time for money. So that's one of the things about entrepreneurship that you can grow towards. From a benefits perspective, because I'm a business owner and my husband has benefits with his job, I don't technically need to have benefits on my own, plus I'm an entrepreneur, so I could pay for those things if I needed them, but I don't need them because my husband has benefits, so technically there's no specific benefits. And I'm responsible for my own RRSP contributions from a pension perspective. But I did also want to highlight some of the entrepreneurial benefits just when you're running your own business. There's tax write-offs for business, and when you're reinvesting in your business, that also is always a tax write-off. There's no earning limits. There's no ladder to climb. You get to be responsible. I don't see that as a bad thing. I don't see responsibility for your business as being a stressor. I think that's a really awesome opportunity. Passive income, as I mentioned, and then also you get to benefit directly from the success of your business. So, the effort that you're putting in, the time that you're putting in, the investment that you're putting into your business, you get to benefit directly from all of that. And just a little brief revenue streams, just how I earn money in each of my businesses. So for book sales, we've got online sales, in-store sales, and then direct sales, where that would be people buying from me directly. School author visits, I get paid for those, author mentoring, speaking events, and my courses. And then for Inner Compass Academy, I have the seminars, I have online programs and courses, and then my holistic therapies are body talk, massage therapy, and lymphatic drainage. So even having multiple revenue streams is really helpful, especially when 2020 happens, right? Like I do in-person sessions, I can also do, distance sessions in terms of the holistic therapies. And one of the things that was pretty crazy is I actually earned more in 2020 than I did the year before, which was not something I expected, but because of having multiple revenue streams and being able to get creative, that was pretty cool to be able to do. So hours and holidays, I set my own hours. As one of the things, when you are your own business, I work around my kids and my family and what I need to be doing as a mother. So I work from 9 a.m. Typically 9 to 4:30, Monday to Friday. About one Saturday per month, I'm teaching on a Friday and Saturday, just because it seems to work best for people. Some weekend events, but whenever I'm doing events, they're usually an hour or two, so it's not a huge time commitment. When I'm, before a book launch of any kind, sometimes that's where I'm cramming, and I have early mornings and sometimes some late evenings if I'm trying to meet a deadline. But I'm always flexible around my family because my kids are quite little and they still need quite a bit from me. Holidays, I take holidays mostly based around the school breaks, but I can be flexible based on project deadlines. If I don't have anything that's, real urgent, then I'm able to be flexible that way. I don't get paid holidays per se, but I'm paying myself, so I can kind of do whatever I need to there. And I do have earnings coming in with book sales even when I'm not working, and I'm really working on growing that. So I'm not just doing the time for money thing, and that my business is earning money without me technically having to be working. All right, so educational requirements for what I do, I tried to just break it down. With massage therapy, you need a grade 12 education is required to apply. I'm not sure if there's any specifics in terms of like what you need for marks or anything that way. And then for body talk training, it is open to anybody. Advanced certification for body talk, I did need anatomy and physiology course, and there was a few prerequisites and things you kind of needed to check the boxes on in order to be advanced certified. And to be a children's author, honestly, there's no specific requirements, but the more you know, the more you can write about. The better you can write, create, market, sell your work, and grow your business. So, the more you know, the more you can do, the more places you can go, like Dr. Seuss would say. And so I think that has been really neat, just my background, and then being able to write about, so many different things. I'm actually working on a book that's about, it's called The Word Nerd, and that one's actually going to be pretty fun. And then I'm working on another one that's more based on anatomy, because I am definitely an anatomy nerd, even though, I still use that information quite a bit, but I'm doing a lot more with books lately than I am in Inner Compass Academy with clients. And so anyways, it's fun to get to include those kinds of things. I do have to do CPR and first aid every 3 years, recertifications, and then I also do regular CEUs for massage therapy and body talk as well. Opportunities. One of the greatest things about being an entrepreneur is I can create, adapt, and advance my business in whatever ways I desire. And if you want to become an entrepreneur, you can absolutely do the same thing. So I just had some examples here. Do I want to travel more? I know that might not be a question to be asking in COVID times, but imagine that we could. Do I want to travel more? Well, I could host a tropical healing retreat, could team up with some friends or some other practitioners and make that happen. I have attended a whole bunch of retreats as well, so have some experience there. Do I want to create more time freedom for myself? I could create an online course with automated marketing, lead magnets, auto webinars, and marketing funnels. If you don't completely understand all of that, that's okay. I've been in business for a while, but that would be something that could create revenue while I don't necessarily have to be showing up for that all the time. But you do have to get everything set up in terms of marketing so that it's happening while you sleep, automated without you having to do it all. Do I want to create more passive income? I could optimize ads to increase my book sale revenue while I sleep. Do I need a boost in revenue? I could create or schedule more courses or optimize marketing and outreach to help fill my classes. Do I want to create more brand awareness? I could focus on media outreach, optimize social media strategies. So I just wanted to share this as there's no ladder to climb when you're an entrepreneur. but you can create anything that you want. So I just wanted to share some of those kinds of questions. There's so much room to dream when you're an entrepreneur, and you get to do what's aligned with you, which I think is really exciting. So there are no limits, and the possibilities are endless. All right, and lastly, I've shared this picture because we like to go all out on Halloween, and I always make sure I take the day off for Halloween. So the things that are important to you, when you're an entrepreneur, you can make those things work into your schedule. So entrepreneurship works well for me with my family life because I schedule my work around what I need for my family and around the ebb and flow of my business needs and projects and deadlines and that sort of thing. I enjoy all holidays with my family, and I can also delegate tasks when necessary to my marketing manager, or if I'm waiting on things, getting back from an illustrator or an editor, I can be very flexible when necessary. Work boundaries are very critical as an entrepreneur though, and especially for me, so I can get what I need to get done, have time for that, but also so that I'm not overworking. I'm definitely an ambitious person, and so sometimes I need to create those limits of like, okay, work is done at this time, you're not allowed to be on your phone, no replying to emails after this certain time. So sometimes I actually need to create those boundaries for myself as well. Oh, and here again, I didn't finish my thought. I purposely schedule days for inspiration, for writing, for self-care. Those things are very important. I'm the person behind everything in my business, so I need to make sure I'm taking care of myself as well. And I think that's everything I have. So question and answer. Do we have any questions, Mr. G?
That was awesome. Comments and I do questions. I just think you're very thorough. Just a couple of comments on some things you said. I really like that one little phrase you said, get out of my own way. And I think that's so much with everybody, whether it's a young student or whether it's someone my age. I mean, that's what that seems to be. We do that so much to ourselves. We're just in our own way we just limit ourselves sometimes. And I think it's like as a retired teacher or semi-retired teacher, I think we're notoriously bad for that. We pigeonhole ourselves into a certain line of we can't do anything else. And I've experienced more kind of out of my comfort zone things since I've kind of retired full time. I kind of go, well, that's not so bad. I could do that, but I didn't discover it, And not that I was disappointed with my career or my job or anything like that. It was just like there were more things I could have done, and that's I'm kind of glad I know that now.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, hey, and sometimes that's just really about trying something. Like you don't know until you try, and then you're like, huh, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, or it wasn't as hard. That's one thing I find quite often. It's like, oh, I thought that was going to be way harder.
Yeah, I admire so much of what you're doing, or all of what you're doing, really. But I mean, the whole process of you said a little bit about it, but how with the books, like I wouldn't even know where to begin. Like, if I wanted to write a story, whether it's a children's book or a fiction or nonfiction or whatever, so how did you find out about where to start? Like, I mean, you said a little bit about that, but can you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So actually, I should share this story because I had a student challenge me on it. So I was teaching Mindscape and I was telling everybody, and we're talking about specifically how we get in our own way all the time. And I was like, here's a perfect example. I've written 2 manuscripts and I have them like sitting there collecting dust. I don't know what to do with them. And this student was like, well, I want to buy one. And I was like, okay. And she's like, no, seriously, I want to buy one of your books. I'm like, but you don't even know what it's about. She's like, I don't care, I want to buy one. And I was like, okay, I guess that's a perfect example to show me that I'm in my own way. Yeah, yeah. Like challenged me so much that I was like, all right, I'm going to look into this. Like, yeah, she doesn't even know what it's about and she wants to buy it. So honestly, I've gotten really good at doing research and even just using Google to find very specific, answers to what I'm looking for. Yeah. And so basically I just looked into traditional publishing, I looked into self-publishing, and I found a few companies who actually, you can pay them and they will have, they have services, they have editors, they have illustrators, they have designers, and that you can use, and they can help you self-publish your book. And so I just reached out to, I think there was like 3 or 4 of them that I kind of honed in on. And then they got back to me, and I had a couple phone calls with each of them, so I understood what they were offering and how much it was going to cost and all of that. And then I signed on with one of those companies. And the thing that I actually, so now I'm creating a course to help people actually learn how to do this, because that it helped me learn how to make a book, but they didn't teach me like how to do it well. They didn't teach me like, okay, how do you plan your illustrations? They just said, now you need to tell us what you want your illustrations to be. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, but how do I do that? Or how should I plan my characters? Or what information do I need? Or, you know, I actually now use all kinds of images. I'll take screenshots of things and I'll organize it in a Google Drive folder to send to my illustrator. It's like, illustration 1, here's all the things that I'm thinking, you know, because you try to describe it with words, and an illustrator doesn't necessarily connect with words the same way that the author does. Yeah. So I have like, this is the color I want, and I have like a screenshot of the colors and that sort of thing. And so it took a lot of trial and error, even in working with that company that was helping me. Yeah. So I did that for my first 2 books and just learned, you know, okay, this isn't as hard as I thought. And then I got better with each one, and then I was like, okay, they're actually slowing me down, so I didn't need to continue with that.
So yeah, you had to learn a little bit, then you could get out of your own way.
Yeah, absolutely. And now I find that there's so many people that are reaching out, asking me questions about books, which, again, I wouldn't have ever thought I'd be wanting to teach any of this to someone, but I get so many questions about it. It's like, okay, well, there's a need there, and then it allows me to reflect on, what is my process?
Your entrepreneurial mindset is really developing that.
Yeah, exactly. If that many people are asking for it, then obviously they're willing to pay for it, right?
I can see why you need an assistant.
I know, my brain's a little bit full sometimes.
But I think what I've taken away from it, Kristin, is that you truly have done some amazing things. And I think looking back to maybe to your high school, there's no way you could have known everything that you've done up until this date, right? And I think that's the biggest thing I think that we're trying to share with students, is that, you know, just keep those possibilities open, because you don't know where life is going to take you. And the journey that you've been on is really, it's methodical. It looks like it's been planned out, but truly it probably was very happenstance. It just kind of happened at the time when it was supposed to happen. And I think that's important for students to be aware of.
Absolutely. Yes, I would very much agree with that. And also, like, being open to the possibilities that come is really important too, because yeah, there's lots of doors that have opened up that, like, I wouldn't have thought there's a school that wants me to teach how to make a picture book to their whole school for a whole day. But I was like, all right, let's try it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Renette and stuff that you probably, it's really not even reasonable to think that an 18 to 17 or 18-year-old is going to have their life mapped out in front of them. I mean, we need to provide you some basic tools to get you started, but it's a matter of some life experience and some, you know, figuring things out as you go a little bit.
Absolutely. And being open to whatever you think you want for your life or your career to change and grow as you do is important as well. Because, I mean, it doesn't mean that you have to do one thing for your whole life. And I mean, even here, I'm doing 2 different businesses at once. And sometimes it's like, okay, I really like this. I'm just going to dive into that more. And sometimes the other business is a little more back burner, and I just kind of let it flow with where I'm feeling inspired at the moment, or what people are asking for.
Yeah, really, I can see. I'm not sure that I could predict that 10 years from now, this is exactly what you're going to be doing, because I think you're letting yourself grow as you go along. So.
Yeah, exactly. Who knows exactly where it's going to go, right? That's also going to be a wait and see.
Well, thank you so much, Kristin. We truly appreciate the time that you've spent with us this afternoon. And I don't think there's any more questions from our office. No, and I think we're good. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot, Kristin. I'll end the recording and